This episode, Summertime and the Living is Holy, how to pass the time this summer and stay firmly on that heavenly road. The Catholic Underground starts now. You have hit the play button on the Catholic Underground, a podcast cutting through the noise and bringing you the topics that matter. It's episode number 449 for those of you who are tallying them up. Boy, oh boy. I am Father Chris Decker. I am a priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge in Louisiana. And joining me, we've got Kathleen Lee.
Yep.
Kathleen Lee joining us. It's summer for you, isn't it?
Here I am. Yes, it is.
Finally.
Yes, it is.
And because it is summer, we have someone who's on kind of an airsats vacation. Father Ryan Humphries joins us. He's a priest in Northeast Louisiana, co-founder of the Catholic Underground. Good to see you again, Father.
I am not Olivia Gulino, but I am very glad to be here.
That's right. And let's go up to space, shall we? You might remember this from your reading of the Catholic Underground podcast transcript. Jeff Blackwell is our tech director, and he joins us from space. Hey, Jeff.
It is good to be here, Father. In fact, Father Ryan is the guy who taught me the word huzzah.
Oh, yeah.
Huzzah.
It's a good
Huzzah.
Middle English word, I suppose.
Yeah, I find that it has, creeped into my brain. I'll say it all the time. I'm like, huzzah! And they're like, no, what? And I'm like, never mind.
Sometimes I think if huzzah sounds a bit too cliche, I'll go back to hurrah. Yeah. We say hurrahs too because Ed is switching the video in his zone, as it were.
Yep.
So there we go.
In his pit.
His pit. Yeah.
The cave of video happiness and joy.
So one of the things that does indeed make us joyful when the summer months roll on, especially in the parish. Now, I can't really speak for Kathleen, although maybe I could because you work for a parish school. So
Yeah.
we are happy as priests when things kind of slow down just a little bit.
Right.
Like maybe some of the weddings pick up, but the parish life kind of doesn't grind to a halt, but it kind of goes into a new phase,
Yeah.
as it were.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a really small parish, and that's definitely the case where my typical Sunday, I've got Mass, and I've got to go teach our version of CCD, which is kind of like Sunday school because it's a little smaller parish. Then I've got to rush off to the next church. And then, it's just go, 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 go. And even though I'm not anywhere near as busy as Father Chris is or, other priests are, still the summertime comes and you have a minute just to, after Mass, say, hey, how you doing? No, we don't have to rush anywhere. Just
That's right.
What's going on? What's the story? Oh, your kids are doing, they're so much taller than they were last time I had a chance to stop and think about it.
That's right.
It's great.
Yeah, so many times we have to, especially in the modern priesthood, we have to just run to the next thing because and I don't mean this braggartly, but we are in high demand, Father, I need Father to be here now. And so you're right, we can pause just a little bit. And so it helps us to understand that there is a sacred time and offering the Mass is important, but it's part of kind of a larger picture because we can't just stay in the church building all day, but our sacred time has to take place, as we've said before, outside the church too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for me, it's a little different than you guys because most of the time, now this summer I did pick up a summer job, which is interesting because I was like, the first day I worked all day, I came home and I was like, I'm exhausted. Like I haven't done anything all year, but it even, with having a summer job and, having time off, the timing is very different. And, I think I've worked maybe 3 or 4 summers in my entire life as a student and then as a teacher, but it's very different. Like things slow down, even though I would imagine that for some people, especially those who have families, and kids, it might get a little bit busier, So it's interesting how your time also goes from being structured, at work, mine does, to being structured at work to having all these things to do, but no real rhythm sometimes, right? So that can always be hard for me is what is this rhythm, And so I'm a natural night owl, and during the summer it takes about 2 weeks to transition
right, because you have to get up early and
I'll sleep a lot later, and I'm up at super late, and then it used to take a month or two into the school year to get back into that rhythm. And so now one of the things that I'm aware of, when I'm talking about time and space and rhythm, is I got to keep whatever rhythm I had going, so as much as it's horrible, I still wake up at like 7 o'clock, to keep that rhythm going.
Do you find that you can actually keep a better Sabbath or season of rest if you stick with the schedule that you had during the school year.
Yeah, because even with the summertime, when I look at it as somebody who has off during the summer, I have a list of a million things that I want to do. I've got this 2-month time period where I can commit to something that, or a few things that is very different than my normal everyday. But I have found that I'm like, I'll do that. And then it's July. It's the end of July, and I haven't done it. So if I can keep a schedule, can keep a rhythm, then I know, okay, I can commit this time to whatever I need, and this time to things that I need spiritually, prayer, going to mass more often, than I can during the school year. Making a retreat during the summer that I might not be able to make during the school year. But yeah, for sure, that schedule is important. Yeah.
I think that's one of the ways that you realize you're adulting.
Yeah.
is that, like when you're a kid, you go, it's summer. I can stay out late. I can stay up late. I can watch movies until 4 o'clock in the morning. And then as you get a little bit older, you realize, I can do all of that stuff, but I don't need to do all of that stuff in order to have a fullness of life.
Right.
And that perhaps happens not only on a human level, but a spiritual level as well. Right. In fact, I said that in my homily today, is that, just because you're going on vacation in the summer, the priest doesn't say, make sure that you find a place to go to mass just because he's being dad. No, a priest is saying that because we recognize that those spiritual rhythms are important too. And when we interrupt them, we actually have to work to rebuild some of those things, in the same way that you have to work at a holy habit to build virtue. Yeah. Well, our rhythms of liturgical life also are helping to buttress the building of those natural virtues and to open us up to the theological virtues that we can't manufacture on our own, but the Lord can pour into us, can multiply as we kind of show up to Him. Right. And that's reflected in the liturgical life of the church, actually. I know you were talking to me today, Father Ryan, about you offered the traditional Latin Mass today privately, since you're on a mini vacay. Right. And the prayers that you chose were for the octave of the Sacred Heart.
Yeah, it's actually because we had a slightly older missal. It's, but that's just the way it plays out. Is that this Sunday, which would be the 3rd after Pentecost, the 5th after Pentecost, is the Sunday in the octave of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and it was wonderful because it harkened back a little bit, but it also kind of sets the stage for the summer. Because Kathleen and I were chatting earlier. Yeah. Other than June 29th, the Solemnity of Saints Peter and Paul, there's not a whole lot going on liturgically in the summertime either. Yeah. August, you pick up some steam with the Portiuncula on the 2nd, and then with the Assumption on the 15th. But yikes, for the summertime, it is green day after green day after green day, and Weezer is nowhere to be found. No. It's just a lot of quiet time. That's right. And that's not a bad thing. It's a time for all of us to kind of slow down a bit.
It's a veritable sound garden of liturgy.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that's kind of a good thing to in fact, in year B, we're spending a lot of times with the parables of Jesus. Yeah. And so there is this notion that we're kind of getting into, if you want, kind of the ordinary preaching cycle of the Lord. He spends a lot of time with the people, trying to unfold in their minds and hearts the ability to kind of dig into things. Because parables, we think that Jesus gave us the parables so that every man can understand. But in fact, the parables are riddles, and they have to be unpacked. And even the scriptures, even today, say that Jesus spoke to the people in parables, but then he gave to the disciples kind of the keys to deciphering the parables, to unpacking them for the people, so that they would be able to have this continued body of teaching that happens even unto this day.
Well, your Father Chris is about to step into a parish with a school. God Indeed. Bless you. The summer is much busier for administrators of schools than it is for than the school year is. But one of the things that I discovered quickly and was very serious about in my school is that literature, stories, these long involved stories, were the single most important thing that our kids imbibe, because it teaches us how to think, it teaches us how to consider, and Jesus boils that down to very, very tight little parables, very short things. But there's an enormous amount of wisdom to looking into stories as the best way to teach. We should also remember too that Jesus, when he was preaching, those stories have been recalled in 75 words or less, which is probably closer to a book report version of what Jesus would have said than, because the Jewish
Mark
people
trying to
are
get it
nothing
all
if
down.
not long-winded. So, there's a solid chance that Jesus probably gave some very long stories as well. And Mark is, like I say, whittling it down to this is what we really want to write down. But stories are good. Literature is good. It's essential because it's the best way of teaching. I mean, it's far, far better than writing formulas on the board.
That's true, exactly. And a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about some of the literature that perhaps we've been imbibing. Oftentimes we think about getting around to our adult summer reading lists because we have all this time. Well, not really. I mean, if you think about it, the summer doesn't always move slowly for us. Yeah. But to be able to inject some of these times for critical thinking. I mean, a good novel, as you've heard us say on the Catholic Underground forever, a good novel, especially like real good fiction, does indeed build those critical thinking skills and allows you to kind of hone those skills for when you have to use them in real life. Yeah. Whenever things kind of start back up in August and September.
Well, I think about summer too as like the time, we're talking about ordinary time and how sometimes it can be, it's just ordinary time. There's nothing really going on. But it's like if you're like playing a sport, you're not always playing in the championship game. It's not always Easter and Christmas. Yeah. Like there is going to be long times of preparing and practicing and over again. And it can be mundane. It can be a little, but that's the ordinary time. Yeah. Is a time where you have the opportunity if you take it.
Yeah. The seeds are growing, right? We know not how.
Right. Yeah. And even like when I was thinking about what is summer, in farming, right? There's nothing going on during the summer. You're not really planting or harvesting. Not
eating.
Really. Yeah, it's just it's in the ground and it's growing. And that's what, if we take the opportunity, like I said, we can let these parables, this scripture, this whatever we read, whatever spiritual opportunities that we take, we can let that. That's right. Cultivate and grow.
Adam in the chat room is saying, as a music minister, the summertime allows us to reflect, take some time off, relax, and pray before choir season starts back up. Yeah, a lot of choirs will kind of go on hiatus during the summer. Yeah. I remember that from parishes long ago. Especially if you have rotating choirs, that you might see a cantor a little bit more often or something like that, so that they can prepare the music for those great seasons of preparation. Yeah. So one of the things I do appreciate about the old calendar is that you were never in counted time in the sense of ordinary time. We call it ordinary, but it means ordinal, right? It's counted, 11th Sunday, 12th Sunday, until you get to one of the high seasons of the church, like of Advent. But in the old calendar, you're always coming off of a high or preparing for one. Right. And I always love that too, because there is this sense of things that are growing and preparing, In fact, that's also where in the church's understanding of the rogation days and the ember days, that you're actually doing something with the spiritual seeds that are planted in the liturgy. And so I really wish that we could somehow figure out a way to kind of resurrect some of those things, because there is an importance spiritually to seeing those things active in the church rather than just saying, oh, Father's wearing green. Right. Yes, but there's so much to that green that I'm wearing. There's a reason for all that,
That's right.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the notion, perhaps, if you need some homework, is okay, the summer is laid out before you. Here we are, mid-June. What are some of those ways that you're going to allow yourself to kind of permission to rest? Right. Permission to say, okay, well, what does a real Sabbath look like? Even if I've got a 9-to-5 job, and I've got a family with 7 kids, what does it look like if we actually are going to be resting together? And if we're going to Disney World, or if we're going to the beach, or if we're going to the mountains, what does that type of rest look like for us as a family?
Yeah, because if you've ever been on family vacation or planned one, that oftentimes you need a rest.
Oh gosh,
you need a vacation from your vacation.
It's true.
So maybe that's the encouragement too, is like when you are looking at these activities that you want to do that are summer activities or restful vacations, like what are you packing into that event? What are you packing into that? And especially if you're traveling with your family. Yeah. What does that look like for your family? Are you allowing time rest for your family.
That's right.
Well, you know, I
We
think
always hurt the ones we love the most
Yeah.
with our resting.
Yeah, right?
well, you know, I think that it's kind of fascinating to me because I think a lot of people plan so much because we're terrified of the possibility of being able to, or being forced to spend time with ourselves.
Yeah.
And being forced to spend times just with our family. And you know, I mean, it's one of these bizarre things that the COVID lockdown forced a lot of us to actually spend time with our families. You know, there were no new movies to see. There were no new interesting TV shows to watch. And you know, the core concept of recreation, of course, is recreation. We need quiet. You know, God is speaking to us, but if I don't ever shut my hole, I'm never going to hear what he has to say.
That's right.
And so, I mean, there's just a certain component of humanity that needs not to be rushing to the next thing, but needs to sit and just listen to my own heartbeat, or just let my brain wander until I have finally gone through everything on my grocery list and everything on my to-do list, and I'm just quiet.
Yeah, and you know, as we've seen, people have found that that entire time of lockdown provided for that.
Yeah.
When you had nothing else to do and you were finally alone with your thoughts, it could be maddening. I know that a lot of folks ended up, you know, actually seeking out the care of a therapist because they had never had a chance to sit down with their own thoughts, with their inner monologue, and to consider that there are larger questions that aren't meant to be solved like Angela Lansbury or the Dick Van Dyke murders or whatever, but they're meant to be entered into as a mystery. Right. And that there is great value to that, and it doesn't take a lockdown to have to be able to enter into that. Right. But the quote unquote lockdown can actually be these summer months where things lull maybe just a little bit. One thing that never lulls is the fact that we find ourselves calling ourselves the Catholic Underground. Allow ourselves to introduce ourselves. You've found your way to the Catholic Underground. I'm Father Chris Decker with Kathleen Lee, with Father Ryan Humphries, with Jeff making sure that we're flying straight and true in a modified low orbit, and then Ed, who's running the video for us. And we've been talking about how to kind of make sacred the time that's already sacred, to return it back to God. And part of that is sitting with ourselves. Part of it is developing a rota, which actually is more understood. Our Anglican brothers and sisters tend to use that word a lot more than we do. But a rota is simply like a rule of life. And a rule of life is important not just in the summer months, but all the time. Yeah. And so I was asking Kathleen at the top of the show about the notion of, well, what does your schedule look like during the summer? Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm getting at here, is that we have in a sense an opportunity to build our own personal liturgy of the hours, from the time that we wake up to the time that we go to sleep, and even in the time that we sleep. There's the ability to build this rule of life that actually helps us to grow in holiness.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I did to kind of, you know, start my summer off was to become a lector at church. I registered at a new parish, and so I became a lector for like 8 o'clock mass, because I knew if I had the opportunity to do that, one, I would go to mass because somebody was keeping me accountable. I think that's really important for especially a summer rule of life or any kind of rule of life, is to have somebody to say, like, because how many times? I mean, January 1st rolls around, we have this rule, this new goal that we're gonna do, and then we don't ever tell anybody, and then we don't do it.
And by February 1st, it's gone. Yeah,
and so I knew that if I wanted to build in, you know, daily mass into my schedule, which I don't have an opportunity to do while I'm teaching, that I needed to be accountable. I needed to be, you know, somebody to have my name on a list. So that was something that I put into mine, you know, as I'm looking at keeping some structure into my
That's
summer.
nice. So is that a daily mass lector?
It is. I'm not.
Wow.
I'm not at every daily mass. I'm not assigned, but I have been. Like you can. They send out subs.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, ooh, me.
Yeah.
because I know if I don't, you know, then if someone is not waiting for me or looking for me to sign in, I'm less likely to do it.
So that might be something is if you're trying to say, okay, now how can I get to daily mass? Well, accountability.
Yeah, a big part of it.
And that really, I've never thought about that, about encouraging my parishioners to do that.
Yeah. Or have somebody that you go with. I've done that before where I've been like, hey,
exercise buddy, so I stay with Mass buddy.
Oh, by the way, we still have Mass, daily during the summer. That generally doesn't go anywhere. It's important to note.
And I think most dioceses have lifted the dispensation, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So a lot of dioceses are allowing people to come back to Mass, encouraging people to come back to church.
That's right.
And that has been a beautiful thing to be able to see people excited.
That's right.
To be back with their church family. And so that's really neat. Yeah, so that's no longer that's no longer something that I would be like, oh, I can't go, it's COVID, So these things
it's interesting that when we're talking about developing a rule of life, some obligation being there is part of the hook. Like monks, they have a rule of life that is built into their day, and everything is obligatory. Right. So if they do nocturnes or vigils, they're waking up at 2 a.m. to do those. Lauds is at 6 every day. Tersex and none are at 12:3 or 12, 9, and 9, 12, and 3.
Right.
And then you end up going all the way through. And so there's a highly structured environment. Yeah. And we're lucky enough to typically, for your average family, to not have to have that level of monastic structure. But those obligations are important.
Yeah.
They really are.
I had a very eccentric spiritual director in seminary, a priest that a lot of people know, Father Stanley Flores, a fantastic and very eccentric guy. But he one time went on a 30-day Jesuit retreat, right? So he goes and he says, okay, I'm here. What do I do? And his spiritual director says, first things first, you're going to sleep until you cannot sleep anymore. And so he slept for like the first 2.5 days. Like he would, just no schedule, no rule, just rest. And then he went back and goes, I've slept as much as I can sleep. And he said, now you're going to pray and you're going to ask the Lord, what are these next 30 days going to look like? And he said that he actually did try to just say, well, I'll get up when I get up. And the director said, try it out. See how that's going to go for you. And he said, I've just about had a nervous breakdown. He was actually talking about talking to a horse and having a conversation. He's like, we got to set something. And he talked to the director and he's like, yeah, because human beings cannot deal with that. We do need structure in our lives. We don't need extreme structure. We don't need every minute accounted for. But there needs to be a moment of, Lord, what do you want? What needs to happen? And whether that is a structure of some manual labor, whether it's a structure of I really want to get up and I want to pray first thing and I want to have a holy hour first thing. I know Father Chris and I are both coffee drinkers. We get up, make the cup of coffee, and immediately sit down and knock out the first few offices of the breviary.
We abbreviate.
But that works for us. But there have been moments in my life, especially when I was busier, where that wasn't possible. And so I would get up and I would exercise and I would read the news and then I would pray my breviary when I was in the confessional at 6 a.m. And it just, there's a difference to each moment of our lives. But that notion of I'm gonna rest and I'm gonna ask the Lord, now, Lord, what should my day look like? I want to offer my life to you, my day to you as a gift. What should that look like? And there should be a certain degree of structure in that.
Yeah, I think that I love that. That's has been a question that I've adopted in the last year. Lord, overall, Lord, what do you want from me? Because I found that when I live my life, I think, I think this is a good thing. Yeah. And even though, as priests, I think you might be able to understand those who live in the church, who work in the church. Even though you're doing church things, Jesus things, you're talking about the Lord, and you still can be doing things that He doesn't want for you.
That's right.
Even though they're good, and even though they're holy, and there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, it's just that it's not what the Lord wants from you.
That's right.
And so really, you were talking earlier about just being quiet. It's because I'd always be like, all right, Lord, what do you want? I think what you want is this, and he'd be like, hey, shut it, and I'd be like, okay, and then being able to say, okay, listening to what he wants, and then having the courage to actually do it is a whole nother thing. Because sometimes the Lord is like, this is what I want you to do. And you're like, how about, just stick with me here, Lord. But what I'm thinking
How about
is
anything else?
Yeah, anything else than that. And so, so being able to ask that question, but also to be able to listen and act on the answer, that he gives you and not the one that you think you might. I'm like, I think what I heard you say is that you don't want me to do that.
Well, one of the things I preach about a lot is the virtue is called docility, right? Being able to listen to and respond to the Holy Spirit. But the prayer I end up saying a lot when I'm giving a sermon is to say, listen, our prayer needs to be, Lord, if you get through my thick skull what you want, I'm going to commit to doing it. And so I'm going to try to pray and I'm going to try to quiet myself, but you need to get through my thick skull what you want, and I'm going to commit that if you get it in there, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so
to which the Lord says, hold my, fill in the blank.
Yeah. Hold my goblet.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so to give the Lord permission is very important. Otherwise, we do, to use that cheesy phrase, we get so busy doing the work of the Lord, we forget the Lord of the work.
Oh, child.
Yeah. And so that's really it, is to maybe at the beginning of the summer to say, Lord, I want this to be your summer. Rather than trying to live my best life, rather than trying to do what I want, rather than trying to write my own ticket and be as drunk as I possibly can, because that does happen. I've seen your Facebook profiles. No, to be able to turn this over to the Lord and to say, Lord, now this is your best summer ever because you created me and you're recreating me in the life of grace. And so what do I have to do to kind of plug into the fact that I'm here because you want me here? Yeah. I continue to draw breath because you're giving it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and let us remember that the summer is not a past. Like, it's not I think that's really important. Is this like, oh, well, look at all the things that I have the freedom to do what I want. And so maybe, I can get away with a few things. Look, it's not a past. We're still responsible for everything that
That's correct.
We do, and that conversation we were having earlier, just because we can, should we?
That's right.
Doesn't mean that we should.
And it's also important to note that the confessionals are open during the summer too.
Boy, are they.
And we priests actually sometimes have a little bit more time during the summer if the confessional's open. And so maybe this is a time you got to climb back on the horse of virtue. Nay, I say, don't stay away from the horse of virtue. There's the episode title. But rather climb back on. And we're ready and we're waiting there.
Those are coconuts.
You got two coconut halves and you're banging them together. Well, that's what the pina colada goes in. So also don't be afraid to seek out the sacramental life of the church in confession, because this could be the time that the Lord is saying, you're doing great. Let's give some of this stuff to me that I can actually heal. And so if you stick with us on the other side of the break, we'll talk more about the summer and some of the things we're reading. The Catholic Underground. We'll be back after this. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. I am in so much trouble. I'm going to be so unfriended on Facebook. Welcome back to the Catholic Underground. I'm Father Chris Decker, who sees all of your Facebook profiles. Oh, well. They're not all that bad, I promise. Kathleen Lee, I see her Facebook profile.
Yeah.
She's doing great. Glad you're here.
Thanks.
Also, Father Ryan Humphries, who
has no Facebook
profile, which
gave up the social media and very happy about it.
Yeah,
good for you.
I'm getting close to it myself. Jeff Blackwell is up in space. He's
yes, I'm always here. Wife says I make a good doorstop too.
Huzzah!
That's because you're such a gentleman, Jeff. That's what it is. It's true.
Thank you, Father.
All right, we're talking about summer and the summer of God's love, and not just the summer, So how can we allow ourselves to be part of what the Lord is doing in us? And one of those ways is by setting out on the Catholic activity search.
Yes.
Of doing Catholics doing Catholic things. And one of the things that time during the summer affords us is the opportunity to travel a little bit. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I was on the Twitter the other day, and someone was in a tweet thread, which, by the way, nowadays you can do that. You can tweet and then you can hit another, and it'll just keep on threading your tweets. So you can basically write a paragraph in Twitter. Nice. What they were doing was they said, okay, I need Catholic pilgrimage sites in the U.S., go. Yeah. And so they were developing this thread of all the different sites in the United States. So like Our Lady of Good Hope is a good example of one of those threads. The Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Any number. We actually in the United States have a lot of national shrines.
We got La Salette, we got Green Bay, we got a good number of places to go.
And so it's possible to make a pilgrimage. We talked a little bit about that before, but maybe the pilgrimage is actually just to, if you have a basilica somewhere in your state, like we do in Louisiana, I'll let you Google it and figure out where it is.
There are 2 of them.
Yeah, there are 2. That's right, exactly. And then there's one in Mississippi. There are probably a whole metric pant load in the Northeast.
And Florida's got several.
Florida has several as well. And
so if you're going to the beach.
That's
well,
exactly
you know what's great about these sites is you don't have to. Your vacation doesn't have to be to that place.
Correct.
Right.
That would be awesome if you were like, hey, I'm going to go on this pilgrimage specifically for this. But it can also be a part of what you already have planned. Mm-hmm. If you are going to the beach for a family reunion, it doesn't mean that you have to, spend 6 days, in a monastery.
Solemn retreat.
Right.
Before you go to the beach and have a good time, but it's part of your vacation. I remember growing up, we'd go to the beach and everybody went to Mass on Sunday. Mm-hmm. It was very clear, like we may be in a different state, we may be at the beach, this is a different time, but this is who we are.
Right.
And I think that's important, especially for those who have families and who are in charge of their families, is to make sure that's very clear, that just because we're off doesn't mean that we're off from the things. And so even during vacations, that's important.
That's exactly right. And so the notion of pilgrimage, I know, Jeff, during the summer, do you do anything extra special? Or you just try to kind of keep the hours at your house?
Well, last summer was a little bit different for me.
Yeah, last summer, very different. You were not in control of your rota.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But no, typically we do try to, find a few days, and it's always in the middle of the week. Simply because if we're going to the beach, it's cheaper to rent during the week than it is the weekend. But,
that's true.
But yes, that, and I don't do, I haven't done a lot of reading. My eyesight is getting better. Yeah. So I plan on doing more of that this summer.
Yeah. Well, I can turn you on to some audiobooks.
Oh, that one I would love.
Yeah. You were mentioning some audiobooks for travel. Yeah. That's awesome.
And so that's another thing too is while you're on your way, of course, I know your kids probably will not like you for this, but to consider maybe perhaps some good Catholic fiction on audiobook. There are some things like J.R.R. Tolkien, some of those books really tend to travel well.
Yeah, they come alive when they're read.
Yeah, they really do. And the BBC version of that is fantastic. Is really good. Yeah,
good.
There is a live produced version of The Lord of the Rings that the BBC did. That's fantastic. It's multi-voice, so it's basically they're acting out the film. No, they're acting out the books as they're being read, which is very good.
There's a completely lunatic version made in Russia in the 80s that is resurfaced on YouTube. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, that's the craziness you're shopping for.
Yeah, yes, that's very true. As far as some other audio books that I've listened to, there's one that I've listened to really good this summer. Called Things Worth Dying For by Archbishop Charles Chaput. He's kind of writing it in the same way that Pope Benedict wrote his last will and testament, or my last testament, I think he called it, even though he's still just chugging along.
Sure.
Archbishop Chaput is like, well, I've submitted my letter of resignation. It's mandatory at 75. And so now I have the opportunity, kind of in his summer of life, he says, I now have the opportunity to write about some of the things in my life as a bishop that are worth worth me saying and things that I'm willing to die for.
Yeah.
As our culture continues to kind of eke its way towards more and more deeper into the culture of death. And so I found that a really good listen thus far.
Yeah.
Archbishop Chaput.
Yeah, I am not books. Books are.
I am not books.
Are not me. I used to read. When I was growing up, I used to read all the time. I used to read all kinds of fiction, all kinds of nonfiction. I loved history books, biographies, all kinds of stuff. And I found that the older I got, and the more I had to read for school, the less I was inclined to read for anything else. So I am slowly getting back into the idea of reading for fun. And I don't know what happened, but I'm getting there. But I find that a lot of biographies are really
Oh yeah.
What I like to spend my time reading. I don't know, I mentioned on the show before, I think it's called A Shepherd Does Not Run. Or The Shepherd Does Not Run. It's about a new blessed from Oklahoma, Blessed Father Stanley Rother. Incredible. I'm reading right now Witness to Hope. It's the biography on John Paul II. It's huge. So it was one of those that I was like, okay, I have 2 months. Let's get into it. But I work at a little Catholic bookstore here in town for the summer, and somebody came in the other day and picked up the Summa Theologica. And I was like, a little bit of summer reading, and he was like, and I was totally joking. And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh,
Wow.
Cool. All right. Yeah, exactly.
Good, cool, good on you.
Yeah. One of the things
that.
I might suggest, because we talking about things you can do over the summer, one of those things might be taking a retreat. Because a lot of retreat centers open for the summer, especially if you can find a nice island that has a retreat center. They exist. But maybe doing an audio retreat. And so Keep the Faith audio, or at keepthefaith.org, they have some of Archbishop Sheen's retreats.
And they're wonderful.
Yeah. So a family retreat, one of his best, it's on sale on Keep the Faith, and as well as other talks on science, on the saints, on the supernatural. If you want, we've talked a little bit about spiritual warfare, and that's always a hot topic. If you want to learn about that, if you want to learn about the heresy of modernism, which is, this is also a good time to kind of say, okay, let me dive deep into some of these issues that are actually the bigger issues on which society is building all of its isms. That could be helpful. Or maybe church history, right? We do understand that the church has had her incredibly bright times, but also some of her darker times. We don't shy away from that to dive into that. Okay, well, what is the church in the Crusades? What is the church in the time of Luther? What is the church in the 300s? What does that look like? Well, this is the opportunity, especially with audiobooks and things like that, to give yourself permission to dive into the history of why we call ourselves Catholic. Because I guarantee you, if you do that, if you dive into the church history piece, the catechism stuff is gonna come.
Yeah.
It explodes.
You're gonna want to know more about why the church held the line on this or that or the other.
If you're interested in church history, Diane Mocher has the book which is called 10 Dates Every Catholic Should Know, it's wonderful. Great book.
Yeah, I'm just writing that.
And I just got a copy of Sohrab Ahmadi, who wrote a new book called The Unbroken Thread. And there's a whole series of books that are kind of like, these are the books you need to read, or these are the authors you need to know. And this book, The Unbroken Thread, is one of those, and it's wonderful. And he's trying to dig in not just to cultural, but to kind of the religious, the lack within all of us that have made what's going on culturally possible. Ralph Martin wrote another excellent book, a long book too, called The Fulfillment of All Desire. And it's kind of akin to one of those, here's a big collection of all the really true spiritual masters.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want to read 800 books by spiritual masters to figure out which ones are the good ones, this guy is going to put them together, get the quotations for you, and let you just get your little pad of tape flags and just go to town. And yeah, it's excellent. I mean, my poor Kindle is just nothing but underlines. And so it's great. I mean, it's definitely worth reading. If you're interested in something a little bit more off kilter, a lot of us watched during the lockdown the HBO series on Chernobyl, which was wow. I mean, just wow. The book that is based on is by Sergei Plokhy, Plokhi.
Nice.
It's called Chernobyl: The History of a Nuclear Disaster or Nuclear Catastrophe. Seems like it would be super depressing. It's absolutely not. It's such a remarkable story. And when you look at that, you go, wow, we came so close to the end of all existence. Hard to fathom. And it gives you a moment of like, God is really good. I mean, darn good.
Yeah.
And so there's some wonderful books out there. And even if you're not a big reader, the audiobook phenomenon makes that really doable. I mean, it's certain books that are hard to read, especially Russian names. God bless America. Audiobooks take all the pain out of that and makes it fascinating to listen to someone tell you the story of this saint or that biography or this catastrophe or whatever.
Yeah. Adam in the chat room says Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales is a good one, as well as The Soul of the Apostolate is a really good book as well. If you want to kind of figure out how you're supposed to fit in, so to speak, to living the Catholic life, living that devout life in a particular way in the world, The Soul of the Apostolate is really good.
Thomas Dubé, Fire Within, is another good one to look into.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an older spiritual master's book, but it was written by a guy that we all know, Archbishop Alfred Hughes.
Love him.
He wrote Spiritual Masters, Living the Life of Prayer in the Catholic Tradition.
It's a good book.
That's right. It's
so
very
good.
good. It's true. And it's available in paperback, actually, still, I believe. So, yeah, that I do like to read. I also... So whenever I've been packing up my books to move to a new parish assignment, something happened, and all of a sudden, all of the stuff that was on the bookshelf when I came into my parish assignment, it got packed with the books that were already mine because I had some helpers.
Yep.
And so I've kind of Katamari Damacy'd a whole bunch of books onto myself. And so one of them, though, just fell into my lap right before the Feast of the Sacred Heart, called The Instructed Heart by F.J. Sheed. So if you remember the publisher Sheed and Ward is actually a husband and wife. Frank Sheed's wife, she and they both were basically street preachers. They were Catholic evangelists in Hyde Park in England. And they were there every day, practically day and night, doing exactly what you see on college campuses and your free speech alleys, except they were apologetically Catholic. And so F.J. Sheed really is a fantastic philosopher and theologian. And his wife died, and towards that period, right after her death, he was working on a book on the Sacred Heart. And it just so happened that he said, well, to talk about the Sacred Heart of Jesus, it's important for us to kind of know our hearts a little bit. And so he said, even though my wife would not want me to write her biography because I'm not a biographer, this is a way for me to begin to mourn a little bit and to share it with you, but then to also use it as a launching board to talk about how the human heart works and therefore how the heart of Jesus works, if you will. And so it's called The Instructed Heart, a sounding at 4 depths. So there are 4 chapters in it. So it's about 100 pages, a really quick read, but a really good kind of, his way is kind of this corkscrew, almost like John Paul II writing, this corkscrew way to kind of get to a point. It's really, really good. Really anything by Frank Sheed is good. So, in fact, I've mentioned a couple as picks of the week, but Theology for Beginners is really good, as well as Theology and Sanity is another one of my favorite books. It is a very good book. So anything by Sheed and Ward, especially written by Frank Sheed, is very, very good.
Yeah.
I've also read and reread again Creativity, Inc., Incorporated. So Creativity is a book by the then CEO of Pixar, and talking about how their processes work, how they allow their employees to work and to grow and to fail, and to do so with a great sense of candor. So a lot of trust that gets built up in the course of this as they grow this business. And that radical candor, if you will, of being trustworthy together actually helps to build a bigger product that any one of them can't do by themselves. It's one of Father Ryan's favorite books.
Oh, man, I've read it so many times. And the audiobook is outstanding. Yeah,
exactly. The way that it's read is kind of like a grandfather taking you through the steps. So it really is a helpful read as well.
That's pretty cool. I love businesses that or companies that think outside the box of a 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. You know, we were talking about time and productivity, and you know, when you go from a 9 to 5 every day, and you do the same thing, you sit at the same desk, and you
Punch
fill out the same
clock.
paper.
Yep.
Yeah, it can get, you know, even teaching can be like that. Even though teaching is a little more,
You don't always know what's going to happen every day.
Yeah.
Yet. You may have a rubric, however.
Right. You can get in that rhythm. And so sometimes even the rhythm gets very, okay, I'm in this rhythm and I've got structure, but it's like, mm-hmm. But I love companies who are able to step outside of that and to be able to think of new ways for their, you know, they look at their employees as human beings.
Yeah.
You know, and what do they need and how can they grow? And, you know, these companies, these big old companies that have, you know, nap rooms. I think that's genius, you know? Like these things are like, sometimes you just need to take a little snooze.
I'd love one
and
of
then
those
get on back to work.
Google nap pods myself.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's looking at the human person that's working
That's correct.
for you, you know?
Yeah. Imagine that. Dignity is involved with
Yep.
growth and even in business.
Yeah.
It can be done. Well, one of those things that also should be done, perhaps, is that part of the show that we like to call
the CU Pick of the Week.
Jeff, do you have a pick of the week this week by chance?
I could.
Yeah, what you got?
Actually, it's a. I have purchased this because while I was out last year, my mixer that I used for audio recording, I got a little booth set up here at the Catholic Community Radio compound.
Little booth.
Yes, in fact, Father Miles Walsh has dubbed it the confessional.
It is. It's the quietest place in the entire building.
It is lead lined, and I mean it's an acoustic.
That's
lead.
why I can't see through. I mean, really, lead line.
Yes, super priest. So I come back and my mixer is dead. It's just not working. So I've been looking at the Rode, and I've been a huge Rode fan, Rode audio and microphones. And they make superb equipment. They're an Australian company. And in fact, I think, Father Ryan, you have one of their coffee mugs, don't you? Travel.
Yeah, I think you gave it to me, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
I use it a lot. There's a caffeine molecule on it. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in fact, I still use mine. We bought that 10 years ago or something. But they make this really cool it's called Rode Procaster mixer. It has 4 mic inputs. It's just loaded with a lot of features. It has a Bluetooth channel, so you can actually pair your phone to the mixer and control it with the faders. It has where you can actually plug a iPhone in, so you can actually, and it does the mix minusing internally.
What?
So you can have phone guests. It's really set up for podcasters.
Nice.
And then it also has 8 sound pads off to the side that are assignable. You can put in pre-programmed like music for bumps
Does it have like a mini SD card or a USB?
It does. On the rear, you got a little tiny slot for the mini SD. I think it'll take up to 128 gig.
Wow.
That's a lot of data. But it'll record in 2, or actually there's like 3 different ways. But you can record a mix, or it'll record every channel discreetly as a multi-track.
Post-produce.
Yes. So
So you can even hook instruments up to it too. I guess.
You can do that. Plus live streaming. It's really set up to jump right onto the internet. So anyway, check it out. What? Oh, how much?
Yeah.
How much? Well, I tell you, I think the list price is like $700. But you can find it if you get somebody in the biz because they won't publish the price. But you can get it for under $500.
Manufacturer's suggested retail price.
Right.
Under $500, that's pretty good for a
it is
thing
because
with
it's
that
power
many. Especially
packed.
maybe over the summer you're thinking about starting a podcast. You know.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it too, it's very, very compact, so you can take it like if you wanted to do like a live event with a speaker system, live sound. You can tie it right into another mixer, or straight out of the monitor outputs into an amplifier. And
gosh, it's amazing! It's amazing where tech has gone in a very short period of time.
Plus, real quick, all of it's got 4 different headphone outputs.
Well, that's nice.
With 4 different volume controls.
What?
Yeah, so
That is very nice.
Yeah.
Well, there it is.
It's cool. Check it out.
Yeah. That's a nice pick of the week there, Jeff.
Well, thank you for asking, Father.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Kathleen.
Yeah. Okay. So I had one and then I changed it because I was thinking about my favorite place to go on vacation and my favorite place to go when I need to slow down. I think I've talked about this before, but maybe 2 years ago, I went to visit some friends in DC and I said, look, I just need to get out of town. I need to come up there and you go about your business because it was Mardi Gras. So they, I had off as a teacher down here and they did not. So I said, you go about your business. I'll take care of myself, and I just went around town and I ended up going, I said, the only thing I want to do is I want to go to the Basilica. So the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. And I've been there before. I've been there a million times. Usually it's during the March for Life. There are 1,000,001 people inside this ginormous basilica.
And it has room for them all.
And yes. And usually I'm trying to herd 10 buses of people and make sure that we have 450 children where they need to be. So I never really get to enjoy it, even though it's incredibly beautiful. And so I said, this is the only place I want to go. And so, I walked in and it's huge. I mean, it's huge. And I walked in on this day and it was me and a security guard.
Oh.
And that's it. That is it. And if you go, you could spend all day in there looking at, I've said this before, it's like Narnia. There are all these chapels to Mary.
Nooks and crannies.
And every time I go, I'm like, this was not
last
here.
time.
It was not here.
In some cases, you might be right because they're actually "quote unquote" finishing it. Right? They just put in the grand dome, right?
Yeah.
The mosaics.
Yes, that is it's incredible. But it's a great place to go. I mean, if you're going to DC, which a lot of people go there for vacation, especially during the summer, it's a lot else. There's a lot else to do there.
Yeah, it's the CUA Metro stop. Easy to get to on the Metro.
Incredible. It's beautiful. And if you so I was able to take the guided audio tour.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I've never actually done that. I've always wanted to do that.
There's an audio tour, and then of course there are tour guides. They have one of the best bookstores and gift shops I've ever been in.
It is big.
Incredible. So that is my pick of the summer for you.
Very cool. You can. We have time for another pick of the week if you want to give us the other one.
Oh well, I had mentioned it earlier, but this is what I'm reading this summer is "Witness to Hope," and it's the biography of John Paul II by George Weigel. And I'm not very far into it, but it's awesome. I find that a lot of even though it's John Paul II, I find that for me, some of his writing is it's beautiful. But I'm like, man, I want to know.
Yeah, what's the story behind this?
Tell me. And his life is, look at this book.
It's heavy.
And this is probably not even everything.
Yeah.
His life is incredible and it inspires me beyond, just because he was so so awesome from being a young boy and then being a priest and all that he had to do to become a priest, and then his papacy could be 600 books in and of itself. But his biography is my goal, and so we'll check in at the end of the summer in August. I'll let you know how far I got, because I'm also taking a summer course, a summer class for my master's, so we'll see. But that's my goal.
All right. Father Ryan, your pick of the week.
Well, I'm going to pick two. One is an audio book that I forgot to mention earlier, which is a hoot, and it's by Carrie Elways, and it is called The Princess Diarist. And Carrie Elways reads it, and it is the behind the scenes of The Princess Bride.
Cool.
So great.
You've got Kathleen's attention.
Yeah, I'm like, I knew his name right when you said it.
It's wonderful, and he reads it himself, and he has all these audio blurbs from Billy Crystal and all these people who were in it, and it's wonderful. So it is not The Princess Diaries. It is A Princess Diarist, and it is a delight by Carrie Elways. The other one I want to recommend is a YouTube channel by this wacky guy from the Netherlands, named Paul Davids. Paul Davids with an S. Paul Davids is a musician, and he teaches guitar, and he teaches music theory. He's wonderful. He puts a weekly show out. It's a very, very high quality show. And we're talking everything here from why the pentatonic scale is interesting to explaining what makes jazz jazz to sometimes just, hey, this is a really cool guitar solo. Let me show you why it's cool. Why is Jimi Hendrix considered a master of guitar? Let me show you all the cool little things that happen and why he does what he does.
Wow.
It's so interesting. It's so easy to follow. It's YouTube / I believe just Paul Davids. But if you search for Paul Davids with an S, he'll be the first one to come up. He's one of those YouTube creator stars, but it's great. It's so much fun to listen to. And if you have any interest in music theory at all, definitely worth your time. And that's on YouTube. And YouTube is free, and then the Audible has Hickory Elway's book.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Yeah. I always like to see the YouTube folks that are sharing why they like the particular talent that they have, and to kind of unpack that talent. That's something that you can do over the summer too, is to say, Lord, you gave me this talent, help me to hone the skill, or you gave me this talent, now help me to kind of uncover why it speaks to my heart. How is it that the talent that you have given me somehow allows my heart to be known by either the world or another person or whatever. Yeah. And that's something that I will think about often. And I have to kind of dial back to 2018 where my art game kind of leveled up a little bit. When the iPad came out with the iPad, the Apple Pencil, and of course Father Ryan remembers this is the device that somehow made it all the way through Spain and across all of Europe. And
it's physically here.
In fact,
I bought it off him.
It's true. As I upgraded, I cross-graded to Father Ryan. He has that very iPad, and so I use it especially for drawing Joe Catholic every month or every quarter for our diocesan newspaper. I use it for the various Instagram art and things like that for the liturgical year. I do other comic books and stuff like that, but I also try to hone my skill with it. And there is a tool called the Handy Art Reference Tool by a company called the Belief Engine. And what it does is it has a large variety of poses of male and female hands, of male and female heads, and I believe feet as well. And because those are some of the hardest things to draw and to get the lighting correct, so you can actually you can edit the light fixtures, so that if you're trying to learn how shadow and light work, which is really something that my skill level is low on, you can actually edit where the lights are falling on these particular objects. Yeah. And you can kind of learn and go along with the reference tool to be able to do that. And they also, in addition to the poses of the hands, you can also add objects in them, so like a sword or a coffee cup or something like that. Because as the hand moves, the way that the knuckles work change, and the way that the different angles are change. And it really is a handy reference tool if you don't want to just use your hands, because you have to do everything backwards if you're doing it that way. So I will put that in the show notes for you as well. Jeff, we are always so grateful because the Catholic Underground is made possible by viewers, by listeners, by prayer warriors, by benefactors. It's really easy for them to get involved, isn't it?
It is. Just go to catholicunderground.com/ that's a / donate.
That's right.
And you can help us a lot.
You can help us a lot, and you can also help us by letting others know about us, right?
Oh, yeah. Look us up, and then if you really like us, give us the old stars or thumbs up, or write a review. Say something nice and pass that along, because that means a lot to those who are interested, but they don't want to actually take the leap.
That's exactly right. And sometimes, Jeff, I like reading good things about the work we're doing.
Yes,
so it's always nice to get patted on the back just a little bit, So let us know how we're doing for sure. If you like our service, please tell us. And tell another person as well. Our panelists, yeah, my brain is beginning to shut down this Monday. Our panelists have been Kathleen Lee at KLee626 on Instagram.
That's true.
Also, Father Ryan Humphries joins us at FRRyan on the Instagram. Jeff Blackwell is our technical director at Jeff Blackwell us. Thank you, Jeff.
It's an honor, Father.
Yes, it is. Ed Ball is running the video. Jim Hayes is our research assistant with his crew in the lab. And you know me. I'm Father Chris Decker. You can find me still on all the social media at Digital Catholic. You've been listening to the Catholic Underground. We're cutting through the noise so that you can find that still small voice. We'll see you next time.
the Catholic Underground.